welcome to the Leadership Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jono White. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We are an Australian-based consultancy that works with leaders around the world, and our passion is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be in order to fill the world with healthy organizations that people love to work for and customers line up to buy from. The goal of this podcast is to invest in you and your leadership. If you're just joining us for the first time, then feel free to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, the most popular being our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from around the world in all different sectors give their in-depth answers on leadership, what books they love, what they found most challenging, the most meaningful stories, how they structure their time through the day. That's free, so go and check it out. And we'd love to interview you about your leadership. I believe you have advice from your experience, your context, and your life so far that is important and can help other leaders. It's also a great way to give back. It's free to get involved, and you can do so by going to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or just Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form that pops up. We have a free resource for you on our website. It's called Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook. It has interviews with 10 world-class leaders, and you can go to consultclarity.org. It's right at the top, and get that today. We also have a daily email that we send out to over 15,000 leaders, and that email contains the highlights, our best content from our podcasts, our blog, my book, the books that we're loving that are out there about leadership. It's also the best way to get access to our masterclasses and workshops before anyone else. And there's also exclusive and limited special options just for subscribers. And you can subscribe by going to consultclarity.org/subscribe. Now, my gift to you is to work incredibly hard to provide the best leadership content I can to invest in you and your leadership. So if you're finding our content helpful, if you find this podcast helpful, then your gift to me could be this. If you do find it helpful, then write a review or rate our content and make sure you subscribe or follow. I can't emphasize enough how helpful that is. It really does help us to get the word out there so we can invest in more leaders to become everything they're meant to be. It also means a lot to me personally when people like you and people in our community share our content on social media. So if you do that, then please do look for me, Jono White, to tag me, and look to tag Clarity on whatever platform you're on. And our team, including me, I'm always looking to see when people have mentioned us so that I can engage with you. And also we look at sharing content. So if you write something about something we've done, there's also a good chance we'll share that with our followers. So if you could do that, that is a massive, massive help as we try to invest in as many leaders as we can around the world. Last of all, you can check out my book about how to deal with difficult people even if you hate conflict. It's called Step Up or Step Out. It's available on Amazon. You can just look up Step Up or Step Out Jono White, or you can go to store.consultclarity.org/book and check it out there. I have coached leader after leader after leader, and in more than 50% of the sessions, this topic comes up. How do I deal with this person? I'm finding it really difficult, and I just want to find a way that doesn't blow up to do just to have a difficult conversation, to lead them better. How do I do that? There's a 3-step process that I outline in this book that I believe can help you. Okay, let's get into today's episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Today's guest is Dheeraj Bhardwaj. I gave that my best go, but I'll get corrected in a moment because I want to make sure I pronounce that correctly. Dheeraj is based in Kuwait. We're going to find out a little bit about his leadership story and in a moment what he does and about the organization, really interesting organization he leads. Dheeraj, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jono. This is a pleasure to be with you on this podcast. So my name is Dheeraj Bhardwaj, just to be corrected.
Thank you.
I'm the group CEO of a City Group company, which is a public transport logistics company.
Yes.
This, we are the market leaders in the public transport in Kuwait. We take about 60% of the market share. We run the fleet of buses, which is around 750 buses with around 1,500 plus people, and we serve the country. And we are trying to transform the whole transport sector in Kuwait. As you know, that the transport is one of the fundamental infrastructural, the aspects of the country's economy. So we are trying to, make this transformation in the country by moving from what you call in the modern world is a mobility company. That's where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for giving everyone a bit of an insight. I always like to ask, what does a day in the life of Dheeraj look like? What do you spend most of your time through the day on? And also, I always like finding out, are you the sort of person who gets up very early and likes to start work early? Are you a night owl? A bit about your day.
Perfect. So the way you map out your day with your work, and you map out your day with your lifestyle so that you have the better the work-life balance. Being a golfer, I'm quite used to of getting up early, and I bring the same practice in my work as well. And considering that we are a transport company where we have to provide almost 24/7 transport service, so our operations are up and running all the time. So it helps me when I get up early in the morning, to start my day early in the morning, finding out how the things are in the last evening, and get started planning my day. So it's very interesting the way I look at it, because you never in the daytime, you never get time to think about what you need to do and plan. I usually spend my half an hour, 45 minutes early in the morning, and just to plan my day, that what am I going to do, what I'm going to achieve. But interestingly, I've been doing this over the years, and I have now progressing. I'm doing pretty well. I started with only achieving 30%. Now I'm reaching nearly 50% plus, which is a very interesting thing to do. And so 8 o'clock we start our office, go to office. Initially I go and meet, most of the time go and meet my colleagues in office, and as per my plan I go and give them my planning schedules to them individually, and the day runs, right? And we finish the day by 5 o'clock in the evening, and then you back home. I live in Kuwait. My family lives in London. My son lives in US. So my time goes with the evenings, connecting with them, because it's the time difference perfectly works for me. I'm ahead of 2 or 3 hours from London, and 6-7 hours from New York, which perfectly worked for me.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate getting a bit of an insight. So let's hear about your story. Feel free to go back as far as, even when you were young, back to your childhood. What are some of the moments that really shaped you becoming the leader and the person you are today, Dheeraj?
Yeah, that's a very long story, but let me just tell you. I started my career, and I actually got educated in one of the top premier institutions in India, which is Indian Institute of Technology, called IIT Delhi, which is one of the very difficult institutions to get in, and they are the great institutions, and one of the successful leaders you will find coming out of them. So the competitiveness, the hard work, all was there in it. So I finished my PhD in 1996, and from there, for 10 years I did the very intense research and development work, a lot of innovations. I was the architect of India's supercomputer, Param Padma, which was listed in the top 500 supercomputers. And then I also worked for a lot of projects in the United States, including some of the work I did for NASA. I also did the work for interestingly, the CERN experiment, which is called the Large Hadron Collider, the Atlas experiment. I was part of the team for a while. I diversified quite a lot, experimented my knowledge, which I gained. I'm a graduate of mathematics and computer science. But I try to, the way I learned is that having these subjects and not be able to apply doesn't make sense to me. So I applied these things to rocket science. Of course, I was involved in the first PSLV launch of India. And then I also got into the finding the oil below the Earth's surface. So in some sense, I tried to apply all the algorithms and the techniques I learned and developed during my PhD or my research career. I applied to the real life problems from the space to the 5 kilometers below the Earth's surface to find the oil. And the one of the turning point for me was I did back and forth between India and the US, and I was trying to find my place where I could better settle down and have a concentrated the place and do that. But what I found is that's not needed in your career. If you're really ambitious, this place doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. So I moved back and forth, and in 2000 I did some good innovations for finding oil below the Earth's surface. I did develop a lot of algorithms, supercomputer and all that. The government of India gave me Young Scientist Award, which was the Young Scientist for Indian National Science Academy, which is a very prestigious.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you, John. This was the 2000. I received that out of, I think there were about 10 or 11 all over India, considering the population of India. I was one of them in 2000. And then later, I continued to work and support the government of India in different missions of telecom, defense, as well as some of the secret services as well. And then 2002, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, gave me another Young Scientist Award. And that was primarily for my contributions to the, setting up the national weather forecasting system and helping the other government entities. So there was another award I received. Then I continued with my work. I was quite trying to set up a totally new, what you call these days, cloud computing. It was a grid computing. I was trying to set up the whole infrastructure.
Wow.
I did some of it for India. And, and then I worked with a lot of private sector. And as I said, the applications, including Sun Microsystems. I ran the Sun Microsystems lab in IIT Delhi as a professor. So the story is that I returned back from the United States in 2001. And when I reached to IIT Delhi, I joined as a professor. I was doing pretty good. All those things were happening. In 2005, I was listed in the top 50 young, powerful people in the country by one of the Indian top magazine called India Today. Among some of the leaders in India, I was in the top 50 young guns. They call it top 50 young guns.
Wow.
That was a remarkable, recognition for me. It's India Today is a well-read, it's like a Forbes magazine of India. And in that 2005, I realized that in order to grow myself, one thing is I started few startups. So let me tell you, this is an interesting story. I started 3 or 4 startups in IIT Delhi in the incubation center. They were going out well, but the feedback came after investing a lot of money. The feedback was that these technologies, what I was working on, were ahead of time. So I realized there is something missing. I know the technical aspect of it, but I need to learn the commercial aspect of it, business aspect of it.
Yeah.
After 10 years after my PhD, I decided to do full-time MBA. So in 2005, I joined Imperial College as a full-time student after 10 years of my PhD. And you believe it or not, I was the oldest candidate, MBA
Wait,
candidate.
really? That's incredible.
Imagine that usually people don't do at the age of 35, right? The MBAs are done slightly earlier, right? And I came from I went there with the academic background and the very interesting story. The first day of the class, the HR professor, the organizational development professor, said, "You know, guys, you need a 1-pager CV." And she said, "Oh, we have a CV, which is a 15-page CV. And I was going down under my desk. I said, oh, right. So the reason was that I had a lot of research papers published. I have about 50 research papers published in top journals and everything.
Yeah,
So I have all listed them down. As you know, the academics are very different than academic CVs are very different than the business CVs. Okay, right. So yeah, that was an interesting journey. For 1 year, full-time MBA, I did it. The first semester, let me tell you, was a nightmare for me. I almost thought I will fail.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And at the end, actually, I topped my class and I got the best project award from MBA.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. And then turning point came. I decided to go back to India, and I was quite passionate about these startups and entrepreneurship, which is still in my blood, and I still keep on trying that. I'm not giving up even at this age. So, but at that time, what happened is I met a gentleman called Ray O'Rourke. He's the chairman and CEO of Langer O'Rourke, right? And he said, one of my professors, he said, let me introduce you. And but by the way, Langer O'Rourke is a big construction company in Australia as well.
Yeah, I know of them. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I was one of them to establish the Langer O'Rourke business in Australia in 2006 when I joined.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So what happened is, this is a very interesting story with my turning point in in the commercial and business world. So the Ray O'Rourke met me in India, and this is a very interesting story. I met him at the breakfast morning. He pulled out a tissue paper from the tissue box and a pen, and he drew one line, and he said that there's a capability scale from 0 to 10. And as a construction company, we are a bunch of we are the good bunch of the bad contractors. And in that year, the Good to Great the book, The Good to Great, if you remember, came at that time. And he was trying to
great book.
That is correct. And then he said, look, in 2006, we are a capability scale on 1 to 10, 3.75. Yeah. And he said, my ambition is by 2012, within 5 years, 6 years time, we want to be 8.5 in capability scale from 0 to 10.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Okay. Then he said, Dheeraj, you have one question to ask. And I said, okay. I gave a little moment, a few seconds. And then I said, Ray, who is 10? So he said the 10 in 2006, because I kind of guessed that there is no definition for 3.75. There is no definition for 8.5, right? The defined definition. It's just a leader who has this intuition that he is kind of self-evaluating and honestly, I'm 3.75. But what it means in terms of the different parameters, he doesn't have that, right? I kind of realized it. And I asked him who is 10 so that I can start thinking what we need. Then I can have a context that what 8.5 means, what 3.75 means. So I asked him, what is 8. Who is 10? At that time, he gave me 3 things. 2006, yeah, he said Tiger Woods. If you recall Tiger Woods in 2006, even now, if you think of Tiger Woods, is legend, right? Then nobody could beat him constantly, consistently, winning. That's it. Toyota, he said, another one means Toyota. Toyota is great car manufacturer. And then said IBM in 2006. That gave me the context. And then he said, okay, Dheeraj, let's go and get the breakfast. We went and, went to bring some breakfast. And he said, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm very clear, Ray. I will define what a 3.75 means. And then I'll define 8.5 means. Then I'll define a roadmap and have these initiatives to go forward. On the table, within this conversation of 20 minutes, he said, Dheeraj, you have the job. You are my head of strategy. You are head of innovation. When can you join?
Wow.
Right?
That's incredible.
And this was in India. And I said, Ray, I've just come back from my business school completing after 1 year from London to see my family. Can you give me 10 days? I will be back. I'll come back. And I said, okay, I have a job. I came back. I got my books and everything. I told my wife, don't open these. They're going back. Right? And after 10 days, I got a call from the Ray's PA said, Ray wants to see you tomorrow morning. I said, okay, let's go. Next morning, I was in Dartford, London, Dartford in Kent. And believe it or not, I was offered a salary which was, and the whole package, which was unbelievably at least 2 times of anybody in my business school in my class got it.
Wow.
Right. It was, I was one of the, the top taxpayers from the day one. Right.
Mm.
And then he said to me, and because I went to, this is another very interesting story where I learned a lot of things, is then he, and I come from computer science. I had no idea of the construction, never done anything in the civil engineering, right? Then the Ray wrote, I was asking, Ray said, I would like to transform the business. I want to see the change. I want to bring somebody who doesn't bring any baggage from my industry, think differently. I want you to do that. So I was after him and saying, Ray, tell me something. Tell me something. What do you want? What's in your mind? What's in your mind? One day, he's very good. I mean, he wants to see his people well dressed, with the ties, suits, and he takes care of the people. He's a great leader. So he one day I wasn't wearing tie. He caught my neck and said, Dheeraj, here's your tie. I said, Ray, today's my working day. I took my tie off. He said, okay. So he said, I want to build without scaffolding. He just said that sentence. I said, I want to build without scaffolding. And he left. I ran behind him. I said, Ray, tell me more. He said, I want to build without scaffolding. See me on Monday in my office. And Monday means 8 o'clock, I have to see him. Right. And this was Wednesday. I thought, what the heck he said. So I went back to my colleagues and said, and trust me, Zono, I never heard of word scaffolding. I didn't know what scaffolding means. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
I rushed to my colleagues, and one of the colleague in my team, he's a quite experienced guy. He built, the London 2012 Olympic Park. He was the project director there. He was in my team. And I went to him, Stuart. I said, Stuart, Ray just said, we want to build without scaffolding. What is this scaffolding? And this guy was a very interesting person. He held my hand and said, Dheeraj, come. And he took me and he said, come. I said, Stuart, where are we going? No, come. Sit in my car. I sat in the car. He's driving towards London. I said, where are you going? He said, just sit, keep quiet. We went to London, and there was a project in London, which is Cannon Street. And he stopped there at the project site and he said, this is scaffolding. So no, that was my, that was like when I saw the scaffolding, I started connecting back everything which Ray used to tell me, that construction industry had a poor image, 40% waste, kills people. It's, if you ask anybody in the society how is construction, nobody's happy about it. We create noise, we create nuisance. And that time, when I looked at the scaffolding, I came back. I didn't sleep for 3 days. And I talked to a lot of people. Of course. My advisors, my people, I understand what is it, what is not. And then 8 o'clock in the morning, Ray is very, very punctual about time. If it is 8, means 8. 1 minute past 8, he will lock his door. That means you're not allowed to get in.
I love that.
He was like, if you have a meeting, he will come exactly 2 minutes before he go to close to the door, and he will lock the door. Anybody out is out, anybody in is in. That's it. Right?
That's great.
So I was there, right, 2 minutes before 8, in front of his office. I went to his office and he said, Dheeraj, you have what's your answer? I said, Ray, I got it. He said, you got it. What do you got it? I said, look, the problem in the construction is because everything is produced, the production is on site, which is ridiculous. We need to move. That is causing all the problems. We need to move all the production off-site in a controlled environment, in a safer environment. And we need to change the construction process. He said, Dheeraj, you got it. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, see me at the helipad. So this office at Dartford has a helipad, and Ray himself is a pilot. So he said, come in the morning. Next day I went to, again at the 9 o'clock. He took me in the helicopter to a Midlands, and he showed me a site. He said, this is the 200-acre land. I have bought this land to build the modern factory.
Wow.
Right? And that time I defined the strategy. If you look at the Langori strategy, it's still safe. This is called design for manufacturing and assembly. right? And that's how I started this whole transformation journey for construction. And very interesting, another interesting story, is that he gave me the job title as a head of strategy, as a head of innovation in
Yeah.
2000, innovation and strategist. And believe me, I lived with that job title for 6 years, and I had a struggle to find a job after that because nobody understood what is innovation and strategy. That job title doesn't exist. It didn't exist at that time. Today, it's quite a popular job title. It's a very high-profile job title. So I had to explain people that I was the head of innovation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. True.
And there was a lot of work I did with the real business people, created a lot of training programs, and all those things. Then I said, look, I have not completed my ambition yet. I came back in 2012. I decided to have another startup. I spent 6 months on the startup, built it, everything was done. Then all of a sudden, then I realized, let's go back to try to get some funding out for this. And then again, the same feedback ahead of time. So I had to went back to the PwC for the job.
Yeah.
Joined PricewaterhouseCoopers as in their strategy consulting team. In the UK, I worked on the aircraft carrier project. Worked for a very large organization like Alstom, Rolls-Royce, Bombardier. I did a lot of projects. And at that time, and this was 2012, 2013. So one of the headhunters, Heidrick and Struggle, a friend of mine from my previous company, he said, Dheeraj, there is a great opportunity. What you have done in the UK for construction industry, there's an opportunity to do it Middle East. And he said,
Yes.
this is great. This is a great company which is built the Burj Khalifa, the Emirates Palace. So they need to be transformed. They need to have this expertise. I said, okay, fine. And I never visited Middle East. And I had a very different impression about Middle East. I said, let's go try it out. I came to the Abu Dhabi in 2013, and when I saw this, amazing. So I moved to Abu Dhabi as a business transformation, head of business transformation and strategy for a largest construction company in Abu Dhabi. It was a great experience learning from the bottom up. So some of the projects I'm really proud of is the Louvre Museum in Abu Dhabi. And this project was not getting off the ground, and it was having a lot of problems in terms of organizing, planning, and all that, because the practices were very poor. I personally took the responsibility, worked with the project director on a daily basis. In 3 months, the project was off the ground, and you see the result. Amazing, stunning architecture.
Yeah, wow.
So I personally took that because I learned a lot of the things which these guys were not doing it. Because one of the things which I found, we talking about this leadership, and one of my experience in leadership is, the definition is very, very important, is people think leadership means the CXOs, the CEO and the CFOs. And particularly in the developing countries and in the part I'm living in, this is how people think. So I started changing the definition and mindset of people, saying anybody could be leader. Leader means anybody who's taking 2 steps ahead of his job.
Yeah.
Showing this. And I gave the example of it. So I was working on a project, and for a government entity as a consultant, and there was a coffee shop at the reception. Every time I used to go, I used to order my coffee. And I realized after 3-4 times, by the time he sees me walking in, he started preparing my coffee. By the time I reach, my coffee is ready, right? So if you think of it, the guy was doing a leadership. He was understanding the customer.
Yeah, you're right.
That's called leadership. Anyway, so I worked in the PwC, did a lot of transformation. Then, from Arab Tech, I joined. I did for 2 years, and then I wanted to go back to the consulting, have a better, the contribution in the region, because Saudi Arabia at that time was coming up with the transformation, and UAE was coming up with the transformation. So I came. I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers, the strategy consulting team, and And in 2050, the ruler of Dubai, he had a vision that he wanted to create and have Dubai as the best innovative city, number one innovative city in the world.
Yes.
And I got involved with the in that session, and I developed something called Dubai Innovation Index, because as you know, Jono, we say it: if you are not scoring, you are practicing, you are not playing, right?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
So,
it's good.
so yeah. So what I said to the Prime Minister's office is, the guys, you want to become number one, but do you know where you are right now? And then how are you going to progress? Because you need to see in which areas, which aspects of the innovation you need to focus on, and what policies you need to bring in. So I developed the Dubai Innovation Index, which is quite a unique innovation index, including 30 most innovative cities in the world, which came out of the Global Innovation Index, which was also done by my colleagues at PwC, other parts of the PwC practice. So in 2015, when I did it, this project received Sheikh Mohammed's, which is the ruler of Dubai's Dubai Excellence Award. Yeah.
Wow.
And then in Sydney, in 2016, interestingly, again back to Sydney, Australia, there was a World Chamber of Congress. This project was done in collaboration with Dubai Chamber. So there was a World Chamber of Congress held in 2016 or 17. And this project won another award in World Chamber of Congress. And I think until I was there, there were four editions were published, and then there is a fifth edition after the pandemic. There was a gap, but now there's a fifth edition published there. Very successful project, very interesting project. Then I did a lot of transformation projects to transform the whole road and transport authority in Dubai. So the whole thing, what I learned is that what I love, and personally as a practitioner, is I love to transform things. I love to take challenges, and this is what I call it. Really want to show your leadership. Get out of your comfort zone and try to take something which is, you prove that you can do it, right? And one of the saying is that, which I personally believe, that if you are comfortable in any role or any place, that means it's a time to leave, because there is nothing more to learn.
Yes.
So the learning and transforming is one of the key things which keeps me driving and keeps my life going forward. And a very interesting thing, Zono, when I was with the PwC, they have a very interesting leadership program called My Way. And I was with the people who are potential partners, they make them do that. It's a very interesting program, which is purely leadership program based on the psychology, right? And it's all about self-awareness and defining your values, defining your objectives in life.
Yes.
And based on that, creating the one thing which I defined from there was that I cannot fail myself, and I cannot let anybody fail me. Yeah. I have a very simple, my personal, I know people, it's maybe not be a very good leadership quality, but that helps me. That I'm a little bit self-aware and a little bit self-centric too, which is, I believe there's nothing wrong, because if I'm not self-centric, how can I drive myself and help others drive the agenda? Right?
True. Yeah.
So I have a very simple theory that I will not let anybody fail in my mission. And I bring people along with me, help them as far as I can do, and bring them to the team, working together, and make the mission which I've taken successful. Right? If you are see, the two, to me, is like, if you're not self-passionate about something, you will not be able to achieve it. I don't do things hard. So let me give you very interesting in the golf. I mean, I learned a lot of things from the golf.
Yeah.
In golf, there's one very simple thing. If you're going and preparing to hit a shot, and in the last minute, if you if you pull back or if you're not fully committed, I can tell you, ball will not go 10 meters. So before you decide, you do every planning, you all calculation, but once you decided you're going to do it, means you have to be 100% committed. You got to do it. No pullback.
Yeah, I love that.
That's how I've been driving. Now, coming back to after this story, coming back to the Kuwait, I was running a very successful startup in Dubai, which is the electric scooter startup called Arna Mobility. But I decided at that point that I need to take another challenge. The startup is still working there.
Yes.
And I found that the Kuwait, the transport sector is quite behind compared to other part of the world, even in the Middle East. So I said, let's take this another challenge of life and let's transform it. And I came here in June, the middle of the deep pandemic, deep situation. I was probably, nobody was able to come into the Kuwait. I was able to come because
wow,
the country needed me, I thought, and this is like how it's happened. So what I have, the way, and this is another big challenge I have taken, a serious challenge I have taken here. Here, as you may imagine, it's an oil-rich, third richest sovereign fund in the world. They don't believe in, the diesel and the petrol is far more cheaper than the water.
Yes.
People don't want to use public transport. Only the blue collar workers, they use the public transport. I have taken a challenge, so I have defined a strategy. I took almost 4 years, as I said, that I spent quite a lot of time in planning and serious planning, so that nothing left and nothing make you fail. And this strategy I've challenged myself that I will reduce actually 30% cars off the street in 3 years.
Wow.
And I think we are making good progress. We are launching a lot of the one good thing and then you have to work with the culture, work with the regulations, work with the people around it, and you find what is really what is one thing which will help these guys change their mindset, right? And I found that in this country, the digital adoption is very, very high. People are crazy about the mobile phones. People are crazy about social media and all. I said, perfect. This is perfect. So now the whole transport I'm transforming into mobility, and everything through the mobile service, mobile apps, right? Your services are available on demand. Your mobility is and I think we will succeed in that space.
Yeah. It makes sense, and I love that perspective that you looked at it and said, okay, there's other locations have transformed for different reasons, but that's not going to work here. So what are they passionate about? And you've identified that, and that's really the core foundation of your strategy.
Exactly. That's what you have to. So this is where another thing important in any of these transformation is that you have a lot of knowledge, learn from everywhere, but the success relies on that how your ability to translate to the local needs and local culture, local behaviors, and local, how the everything else works locally. So that's what I'm trying to do it. Hopefully, touch wood, I'll be successful in my mission, what I'm doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's I mean, that's wonderful to hear. I want to ask you, what have you, doing rocket science and working in your PhD, what things have you learnt from those years in leadership and business that are the same? And what things have you experienced in leadership and business that are actually different and counterintuitive to how some things work in science?
I think that there are a lot of parallels in both things. The thing is, in businesses, the academics gives you how to structure problem before you go and solve it. In businesses, because of the business, what happens because of your pressures on the P&L and revenue and the profits, the people tend to are more reactive than thinking and going, before restructuring, they take the actions. They believe in taking actions before without structuring.
Yes.
And because I have done the in and out of the academics, the consulting and industry, this is what I see is that when you are in academics and consulting, what I learned is how to structure a problem. But in businesses, things, wherever I've started, is all chaos. And if you bring these things together, that's the great success story. And this is exactly what I've done in all the businesses where I work with.
Yeah.
You bring that structure, and then you take those business decisions, which are much more impactful, rather than you make a decision and you going into the iterative loop, right? Which is in a back and forth in the loop. Rather, you just define it, structure it, and go for it. And your decisions are. So this is another very interesting thing, is that another thing which I've learned in that because of the digital, that the people started talking about the digital transformation. I think, in my opinion, after working with consulting for so many, 80% of the business leaders don't understand what digital transformation means.
Yeah.
And I used to tell them very simple thing. Look, there is a digital transformation has a very simple definition, that if your decisions are based on analyzed data, you are digital.
Yeah, I love that.
Right.
Mm.
And what is it? At the end of the day, you can bring all these big digital technologies, but at the end of the day, your decisions are, should be based on analyzed data. What data is telling you, follow it, right? Data cannot lie, but it has to be put in perspective, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And I love what you said earlier. If you're not scoring, if you're not keeping score, you're practicing, not playing.
Absolutely.
That's such a good quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you some Leadership Express questions. So a bunch of questions, just the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, the first one is, what's a book that you've gifted to other people? A book that you'll tend to, give as a gift if you're part of a company or a young leader or a new client or friends. Any books that you like to give away?
Yeah, it's called 6 Minds for Future.
6 Minds for Future.
Yeah. I forgot
Brilliant.
the name of it. Yeah.
No, people can look that up. That's awesome. Love it. Any great podcasts you're listening to at the moment?
I do listen to some of the podcasts in my industry, which is from Commotion, my colleagues at the New Cities, primarily in the space of the mobility, where the mobility is moving. So I try to remain very focused. So the Commotion guys are my dear friends.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What's a recent leadership lesson you've learned for the first time or been reminded of?
I think the recent one is the self-awareness, and self-awareness and self-evaluation and true to yourself is one of the most important leadership lessons I've learned.
Yeah, that's great. What about a great piece of advice you received at some point where someone gave you great advice?
Oh, that's brilliant. This is very good. One of my colleague, one time, he advised me very interesting thing. He said, Dheeraj, remember, you as a person, if you want to be successful, you have to focus on your brand, right? And this brand, you build yourself. When people see you, they know who you are. And the problem with this brand is that it stick to yourself so much that it's very difficult to change, right?
Yeah.
And once I heard that, and since then I started thinking a lot before I do anything, that how this is going to, how the people are going to perceive my actions.
Yeah,
what they will create in their minds, right? And this was a great advice, and I give it to all the youngsters, saying, when you are starting your career, remember the brand starts building from the day one, and it lives with your life whole time. I know this, that people call me geek. Even I'm a solid commercial person, but people still think I'm a geek. It doesn't go away. That's the
It
problem.
doesn't go away. Yeah, that's right. So be intentional with what you do, knowing it's going to be part of your brand. That's wonderful advice. What about a movie or TV show, anything or another book that really impacted you?
I think the Beautiful Mind, you know,
Yes.
that is one of the, the game theory book, uh, you know, that was, I've watched times and times and times, that how someone can be so much passionate about, what they do,
Yes.
in every event. It was a beautiful movie, um, that I love to watch anytime.
Yeah, that's another great recommendation. And last question, what, if you could only give one piece of leadership advice to a young leader, what would you say to them?
And be curious all the time, and don't be afraid. Take the challenges, go for it. Once you convince yourself, go for it, and always remain curious, learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Always remain curious. That's great, great advice. And this has been a real joy to hear your stories. For those who want to connect with you online, um, just to thank you for what you've shared today, or to reach out to you for some reason about what the work you do with your with the group of companies. What's the best way for people to connect with you online? LinkedIn or Twitter and those sort of things.
LinkedIn, perfect. LinkedIn is perfect for me.
Wonderful. People can go to LinkedIn and find you there and connect with you. And I just want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Thank you so much for spending time. Today's been brilliant. I've really loved chatting with Dheeraj. So also a reminder for our listeners, we also have the John O. White Leadership Podcast and Leadership Question of the Day, a couple of other podcasts to invest in your leadership. But I want to finish today by saying a massive thank you to Dheeraj for being so generous with your time, for sharing incredible stories. My mind's still reeling, knowing more of your story about the things you've done, and just incredible and wonderful to hear the links you made between science and your PhD and innovation in construction, which has really influenced where I am here as well in Australia. And what a wonderful, wonderful story, and just a real joy to listen to you unpack that. So thank you so much for your time, Dheeraj.
Thank you very much, John. It was a pleasure sharing my experience with you. Thank you. Thanks for inviting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast as much as I did. If you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, including our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from all over the world in all different roles, in different industries, answer these 7 questions on leadership, and leaders give these in-depth answers around how they spend their time, a book that's been significant for them. It's just a gold mine. It's completely free to access, so go to consultclarity.org and look for that. We'd also love to interview you about your leadership. I believe your experience, your life, your context means that you have advice on leadership that other leaders can learn from. Yes, you, if you're going, not me, well, no, I really believe you would have something to add. So if you're looking for a way to give back, it's completely free to get involved. And we would love to interview you through the 7 Questions on Leadership. You just go to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form and get involved. We have a free resource on our website called the Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook, 10 world-class leaders giving their thoughts on leadership, and that's completely free. It's available on our homepage, consultclarity.org, right at the top, so make sure you go and get that and download it today. And we have a free daily email that you can subscribe to. We send this out to over 15,000 leaders from around the world. And it contains the highlights of content from our podcasts, our blogs, our books we're reading. It's got the best content, and it gives you exclusive, limited, early access to our masterclasses, workshops, new products, special offers. It's all for our subscribers. You can go to consultclarity.org/subscribe and join 15,000 other leaders. And my gift to you is to work really hard, particularly through the Leadership Conversations podcast. I have been blown away by the quality of the leaders, and I'm learning as much as anyone in doing these interviews. So I'm having a great time. And my gift to you is to keep lining up the best leaders I can to invest in your leadership. Your gift to me, if you're finding this helpful, there is something that you could do that would help us out massively. And that is to write a review and to leave a rating for our podcast or wherever you're watching or listening to this. I can't tell you how much that helps us out. Also, subscribe or follow. It really does make a difference in helping us to help more leaders become everything they're meant to be. Another thing that means a lot to me personally is when I see our community share our content. So if you do share this or any other piece of content on social media, then thank you, and please do that. And look for me, Jono White, or Clarity, and tag us in your post. Our team is always looking for posts to engage with from our community, and there's also a chance that we'll share your content to go beyond and share it with our followers. Last of all, you can check out my book. It's called Step Up or Step Out: How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. I wrote this book because 50% of the coaching sessions I have with leaders, this topic comes up again and again and again. And it's this idea of, how do I have this difficult conversation? How do I lead this person better when I'm finding them difficult? Or in some cases, you look and you say, I think I might be leading a difficult person. They're just quite difficult to lead, or I'm finding them quite difficult to lead. So there's a 3-step process that I unpack in Step Up or Step Out. And the amazing thing, and I've literally done this myself, and I've heard it anecdotally from other leaders as I've coached them, is that if you follow this process, you will see that person step up and change their behavior or make a decision, which is to step out some of the time. 95% of the time, people will step up or step out in just 4 weeks. And I stand by that. It's you have to read the book to understand, but I really do believe in it, and I've experienced it firsthand. It works. So you can go to Amazon, look up Step Up or Step Out Jono White, or store.consultclarity.org/book. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back with a new episode next time of the Leadership Conversations podcast. And I hope today has helped you to take another step towards becoming the leader you're meant to be. See you next time.